Today, of all things, I'm going to talk to you about wild grapes. Reading to you from Isaiah chapter 5, verses 3 and 4, where we hear the Lord say this to his people. And now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, judge, please, between me and my vineyard. What more could have been done to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Why then, when I expected it to bring forth good grapes, did it bring forth wild grapes? Isaiah chapter 5 is rich in images and poetry, but the message itself doesn't comfort Israel. It confronts God's people for their lack of response to the work of the Lord in them. Listen to the Lord as he simply asked Israel, "Judge, please, between me and my vineyard." The question was simple. Who was to blame for the harvest of only wild grapes? Was it the fault of the owner of the vineyard, or was it the fault of the vineyard itself? We know, and they knew, that farming is a matter of cause and effect. Literally, one could never blame a vineyard for lack of production, but in the Lord's vineyard, the will of man is a factor in it all. So again, the Lord asks the question, what more could have been done to my vineyard? In the story set out in Isaiah chapter 5, there was nothing left undone by the owner of the vineyard. He did all that he could do. In the same way, God cannot be blamed at all for the wild grapes his people bring forth. God did all he could do apart from making men robots, acting apart from or against their will. In Isaiah 5, only wild grapes came forth. And that is just what you would expect in a vineyard to produce if nothing had been done to it. All the love, care, time, and work, all the investment in the vineyard had no result. That's a heavy idea. That God does his work in us, but there's a place for us to respond. If only wild grapes come forth, the fault lies with man, not God. We may say that before God, every soul of man has the chance of becoming a fruitful vineyard, and if it becomes the reverse, it's due to no failure, either in the wisdom or grace of God. Think of what Charles Spurgeon said about this passage. I'm quoting him now. He said, "O you that profess to be his people, what more could Christ have done for you? What more could the Holy Spirit have done? What richer promises, what wiser precepts, what kinder providences, what more gracious patience?" In all this we see that it is possible for God to do a work in his people, but for his people to receive that work in vain. Paul warned in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, "We then as workers together with him also plead with you not to receive the grace of God in vain." Again, that's 2 Corinthians chapter 6. Now, of course, a literal vineyard doesn't do anything. But we, as God's vineyard, are called to work with the grace of God so that grace is not received in vain. Now, grace isn't given because of any works, past, present, or promised. Yet it is given to encourage work, not to say that work is unnecessary. God doesn't want us to receive his grace and become passive. Paul knew that God gives his grace, we work hard, and the work of God is done. Hey, let him work in you, respond to his work, and bring forth something better out of your life than wild grapes.